Hello, everyone, and welcome to a truly special episode of AEC Project Management Podcast, our 100th episode. Today, we're celebrating a milestone that reflects years of conversations, lessons learned, and real-world project management insights from across the AEC industry. When we started this podcast, our goal was simple: to help project managers in architecture, engineering, and construction better understand how to balance scope, schedule, budget, leadership, and communication. Not just in theory, but on real projects with real constraints. What this show has become is a trusted space where experienced professionals share what actually works in the field. Across those 100 episodes, you've helped us reach hundreds of thousands of downloads, page views, and video views across platforms, and more importantly, built a growing community of project managers committed to continuous improvement. In this milestone episode, we're looking back at the top 10 episodes that captured your attention the most. The conversations that resonated, sparked new ways of thinking, and delivered practical takeaways you could apply immediately. So whether you've been listening since episode 1 or you're tuning in for the first time, thanks for being part of this journey. I'm Fiona Johan, and this is the AEC Project Management Podcast. Let's jump right in. Starting at number 10, we have episode 83 with Sebastian Lobo Guerrero, PhD, PD, BCGE, who explored the power of empathetic project leadership in AEC and why emotional intelligence, trust, and communication are essential for delivering successful projects. Let's hear what he had to say.
Probably the most important one that I have identified is empathy. And I think to me, empathy is the key of everything. I mean, you were at the different positions. I mean, when you are a project management, in my opinion, you got there because you already passed every single position that you, or the majority. Let's say if you are in a company like the one that I am, I'm supposed to have done everything that everyone that is working on a project with me is doing, right? So if you're working in different companies, maybe obviously you're dealing with people that you never really have the chance to do what they were doing. But in my particular case, that's, I deal with people that are at positions that at some point I was in 20 plus years, right? So to me, it's always that empathy of thinking, okay, well, what are you asking? Is that realistic? It's what you would have done. How would you have feel? I mean, empathy to me is extremely important because it's putting yourself on the other's position and see, is this some expectations? And this goes even beyond, I mean, positive and negative feedback. Extremely important to pass positive and negative feedback. Don't wait to pass feedback to the annual review. That's the worst thing that you can do because in a year, we don't remember anything. Give positive feedback at the moment and, give credit when it's deserved. Be also good on giving negative criticism. Most people prefer to avoid the negative criticism. Like, I'm not going to deal with that. That person can just fix his or her problem on themselves. But that's also bad, right? And you need to really learn how to pass that negative criticism, right? You have to do it in a way that is constructive, always. Not just like, do not start screaming at somebody and saying, you should have done this better, right? No, I mean, it's just saying, hey, let me see what I can do better for you. What tools do I need to give you to improve? And then trying to explain why the problem was a problem and how you think it can be fixed, right? At the end of the day, I mean, what we're doing is you end up going into management because you have done, I mean, in our practical civil engineering environment, you end up doing, management because you have been doing what you are doing right now for a long time. And that's the reason you're on that. You have the technical knowledge and you're managing people to do it, but you can never forget that you were there. And you can just provide the tools to people so they can do their job better. And that's your job. And if they are not, identify why not and fix it.
At number 9, episode 81 features Jose Mateo, MBA, MSEE, who shared insights on mastering technical leadership in AEC projects, including how project leaders can bridge technical depth and team collaboration to improve delivery outcomes. Here's a strong segment from that discussion.
The key benefits of integrating the disciplines of engineering and project management, going into specific benefits, I'm going to give you kind of 3 of the big ones. So number 1, I would find that you have fewer design rework cycles. So if the PM has an engineering background, usually the PM will then be able to kind of have foresight into what are the risks, understanding, depending on the discipline, what is it that we're going to get into? Is this something we've done before? How can we reduce reworks pretty much in any discipline. Number two is kind of having better schedules, right? So if you can eliminate rework and you understand the deliverables, then you can certainly make better schedules up front. And then number three, I would go into stronger change management, right? So a PM that has an engineering background will be able to manage that piece better.
Coming in at number 8, episode 3 with Gary Hamilton. Delivered practical project management tips for engineers, especially those transitioning into PM roles and learning how to manage scope, expectations, and cross-disciplinary teams. Let's listen in.
Yeah, and what it is, for me, it's more, more of a natural leader in terms of my skill set. Leading in all facets of my life. I used to be the captain of, several soccer teams. I used to captain my chess team, and also a community leader as well. In terms of most of the mission trip that I do, and I have a nonprofit foundation as well. So that's something that I always like to do in terms of to lead, even on projects. Is the moment I started healthcare, it's that general tendency to try to take the lead and try to lead my troops to the finishing line. If it's to a project submission or project completion, that's something that I enjoy doing. So on a bigger aspect of really pushing to leadership and where I am is understanding that technical part is the first part of doing it. So understanding the drivers, understanding what we need to do in terms of requirements, especially with the healthcare space. It's much more technical in terms of the requirements than a commercial space. So understanding that helped me in terms of my transition. But as I said, I did do a master's. I actually did a lot of leadership training within the firm as well to prepare me for a position like this. But I think it's something that if you truly want to go into leadership, it's really trying to understand all aspects of the work and not I would say don't pigeonhole yourself with try to not only concentrate on your discipline, concentrated on trying to learn other discipline and how discipline interrelate and how you're able to navigate the whole space of delivering projects, and really also by expansion understanding your clients that you're working for, understanding how to relate to them, understanding how to meet their needs and demands at times, because sometimes it's really demanding field to be in. But I think overall working hard, putting the effort and making sure that the company that you're at is giving you those management and leadership training to prepare you for the position that I'm at now doing.
At number 7, episode 60 with Laura Bernard. PMP, Cal, ProSci, IES focused on practical strategies that'll make you a better project manager, from prioritization and planning to avoiding common leadership pitfalls. Here's a key takeaway moment.
Well, you've got the book in front of you, The Impact Engine. And if you it's funny, my version of the book has all of these little places, scribbles all over it, all these things that I want to tell people, talk about. It's the scribbles all over the book, right? It's meant to be used as a resource, with you all the time. And it's funny, I would just in Saudi Arabia, when I was just mentioning to you that I was just in Saudi Arabia, and one of the people that I saw there, she said, I keep this book with me everywhere I go. I pulled it out so I could sign it for her. And she's like, you're coming from the other side of the world, you are signing my book, right? But chapter 2 in here is all about what we call the impact driver mindset shifts. And in the impact engine system as a whole, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later, the central gear of that system is the mindset. You must have the right mindset, and there's 6 key principles to our mindset shifts that everybody, whether you're project manager, PMO leader, frankly anybody running and delivering on change, must understand these 6 key principles, and they spell the word impact, which is why we call them the impact driver mindset shifts. Instill focus, measure outcomes, perform relentlessly, adapt to thrive, communicate with purpose, and then transform mindset. There are 6 things you must do if you want to accelerate strategy delivery for your organization, and it's a big one that people in the space of business transformation must embrace. So The first one is instilling focus, and we can talk about the others as we go through based on time. But and that one is the way I would think about that one is there's multiple threads to instilling focus, but it's really about it's not you don't want to just throw yourself into managing project tasks, right? Instead, we want to get laser focused on what the organization is really trying to achieve. What happens with a lot of people is that they're spread too thinly. They're trying to do all this operational work and the project work and all these different things coming at them at once. And if everything is important, nothing is important. And so it's about making sure that you get laser focused on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and prioritize your energy and focus to be on the things that are going to drive the biggest business value the fastest. And this isn't just for people on the projects or the project manager. This is often conversations we have to have with folks in the C-suite, right? Because they're the ones that are like, well, everything's important. We got to get it all done tomorrow. What have you done for me lately, right?
Coming in at number 6, episode 76 features Rohit Modwani, CCM PMP, who discussed what it takes to deliver large-scale infrastructure projects with confidence, including coordination, stakeholder management, and risk mitigation. Let's hear a highlight from that episode.
Yeah, that's a great question, Fiona. And what I would say to that is, first of all, the projects, the teams, and the stakeholders need to have clarity on the purpose and vision. Why are we doing what we're doing? Right. And it means something for everyone. It means something for project managers on the team, but it also means something a little bit different for residents nearby or the funders or perhaps the government agencies involved. So it's important for all of them to be clear on their own role and what they get out of it versus what they can offer. And that shared sense of purpose, clarity, and vision is really what drives such a diverse pool of stakeholders to work in one direction. And if we got a lack of that, everyone's kind of got their own understanding of what they're doing, but it's not a shared understanding. So the way to do that tactically is invest time in chartering, partnering type activity upfront, and invest time in communication, whether that's internal communication or external communication. So a lot of projects will have an outreach team, and that's excellent, absolutely must. I think you also need to have an in-reach team, as I call it. So you look within the program and you know how the program sees the world and vice versa.
At number 5, episode 91 with Clark Siobhan, PE, PTOE, PMP, explored how intelligent transportation systems improve road safety and efficiency, and what project managers should understand when leading technology-driven infrastructure projects. Here's a strong clip from that conversation.
So, communication is huge, right? All these different devices need to talk to each other. A lot of times they're developed in a way to talk to each other, which is supremely helpful. But oftentimes they're not. And oftentimes you have to find workarounds in order to get maybe a detection system communicate to a flasher relay or something where it was not intentionally developed for, or there may not be a built-in communication protocol between the two devices. So in addition to having not just good communication, but reliable communication that is accessible 24/7, that can provide these alerts to your emergency responders, provide alerts to your management centers that are monitoring the traffic incidents. They have to find ways to work more efficiently, right? So the infrastructure that's out there now is overwhelmed, right? So as we're developing, we're putting more and more fiber in places. We're putting more and more communications out there in preparation for the full build-outs of all these different agencies' systems. But in the meantime, we're having to find ways with AI, with edge computing devices, to really minimize the bandwidth requirements on the system in order to do more with less.
Taking 4th place, episode 85 with Rodney Jones, RCE GE, focused on leadership in geotechnical engineering firms, highlighting how leaders manage risk, develop talent, and make informed decisions under uncertainty. Let's listen to the standout moment.
Geotechnical firms are good regional, and on the smaller side, mid-sized firm, as long as you're not trying to achieve that large firm. I mean, it is for some people, but for a client that just saved, $15,000 or $30,000 to put an addition to their house, that's their big project. That's their main news. That's what all their relatives are asking about. To a geotech firm or an engineering firm, that's just one of a dozen or even more projects they're working on. But to be able to personalize each project is invaluable. We were talking about these crazy good technologies. Each one of my jobs, we open a Microsoft Notes, and we take notes not only on the project but on the people. Just little tidbits that you reflect on, and it helps you remember if you can come up with suggestions for design. So you becoming a little bit of a personal part of their project is taken into high regard with those clients that are, spending their hard-earned money. They love being able to talk to an actual engineer or a professional that's working on their project instead of, calling and talking to an admin and leaving a message and then getting email. I had the other day I checked, and I have, 1,600 or 1,700 numbers in my phone. I would say 2/3 of them are clients, first, last name and their company. And then there's notes, and it's, what address their project is on, and things like that. So when the call comes in, I might know 10 Steve Phillips, but when he calls, it's ADU on Greenbrier with Wall. And all of a sudden that project comes back. It's, hey, Steve, how's that new pool and wall working? And all of a sudden you could hear an uptick in their voice that, they're calling you for the next project. But the fact that you remembered that, call them by name, you can basically guarantee you're going to get a portion of their next project and be able to help and walk them through it, which I love to do, as the geotechnical engineer. And then testing and inspection, we get to see projects from conception to finalization. And it's very fulfilling.
Strong project outcomes need skilled managers and competent leaders. EMI's corporate training delivers expert-led courses in project management and people leadership, plus industry-recognized certification and exclusive premium content to take your team even further. Elevate your team's leadership capabilities today. Visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org and click on corporate training.
In third place, episode 89 with Ryan Kunish explored how AI is transforming construction project technology and what project managers need to understand as digital tools reshape workflows and decision-making. Here's a clip from the Core Insight section.
Yeah, look, I don't think we can have a discussion about technology these days without talking about AI. And I think, in terms of its impact, I think we're just at the beginning of it. So obviously, AI assistants and agents that can help summarize data, provide efficiencies to workflows. It's already impacting our industry, and I think it's going to be revolutionary. But certainly, growing technologies over the last few years, the advancements in reality capture and computer vision, and kind of my former life in LiDAR and drones, really bridging that physical world to digital, because at the end of the day, we're building real things. And so I think capturing what's happening in the real world and bringing that into the digital world to create efficiencies is really huge. And a really big part of that, and maybe the third thing that stands out for me, is we've been talking about BIM for a long time in the industry, and 3D, 4D, and 5D project delivery. I think with the advancements in technology for ease of use and ease of adoption that we're seeing now, and also just the huge uptake across the globe across small contractors all the way up to very large capital project owners, I think visualization in project deliveries is huge. And so three-dimensional models and integrating that with cost and schedule is just revolutionary for our industry.
Our runner-up at number 2, episode 80, with John Boulay, PE, focused on proactive leadership in project management, sharing principles and best practices for staying ahead of issues and leading teams through complexity. Let's hear a key takeaway.
Well, first you have to have a baseline project plan, right? And you should develop that before the kickoff. And that project plan should really be written. And, I think most engineering companies have formats. You really need to talk about budget, how it's going to break down, among the subs, how it's going to break down among the disciplines, what your expectations are on task budgets, what is the design software, what are the quality management system that you're going to use, and what does that mean? What are the activities associated with that? What's the meeting cycle, both with the client and with the internal team? Obviously the schedule, and what's the initial schedule, and things like that, so that it's comprehensive. You're starting, you've planned it out in detail, and then of course you step into the project, and guess what? Things change.
Right.
They change early, but it's much easier to change your plan and adapt your plan to those changes than it is to sort of shoot from the hip along the way. And I do think that the best PMs are really going to develop that plan and use it as a tool, a management tool, to reduce risks, communicate better, and then be proactive when things don't meet the expectations of the plan. And again, communicate that to the client or to your partner, the sub-consultant, and then sort of adapt the plan in a way that makes sense to make the project successful.
And our top episode, the one that resonated most with listeners, is episode 1 with Mike Lazanoff, where we covered the project management triangle: scope, schedule, and budget, and why mastering these fundamentals is still critical for consistent project success. Let's hear a standout moment from that conversation.
So I think, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it starts with scope, right? I mean, again, that's the building block for everything that we do. So we have to understand the work that is done. And by doing so, we understand how long those aspects are going to take. That in turn builds the budget. And then that in turn, because how long it's going to take, we can then plan a schedule once we see everything kind of put together. So let's go just a couple examples. Let's say if I'm a project manager and I heard your message, I'm going to concentrate on scope and I'm going to pay attention. Scope is the biggest thing. That's what I'm taking away from this podcast. I need to focus on scope. So if I'm only focused on scope and I'm worried, they mentioned don't go out of scope. So I got to make sure that I'm staying within scope. If you're making sure that that's all you're doing, you're not really keeping an eye on probably the overall schedule. How long is this going to take? If I only look at, let's go back to my example, right? I thought I did the best design. I was within the scope. I designed the heck out of that thing, but I went way too long. I had no idea. No one told me that there was a budget associated with that, right? And how many hours. So you can lose, those other two elements very quickly. Let's look at budget. If I was only worried about budget, and I know some project managers that, it's hammered into them. You've got to manage your budget, and they kind of freak out about that. So they're really focused on budget, and they're taking their eye off of, are we staying within the scope? Are we growing beyond that? We're spending more dollars, but we don't know why. I'm just looking at our budget every day, and I'm seeing what's being spent, right? And I don't know if we're meeting the schedule or not. What if I'm thinking based on the budget, we've spent 50% of the fee? We're probably 50% of the way on the project. You can't make that assumption. I understand why you might make that assumption, but you got to go and make sure that you're doing the work that you're supposed to, and is it far as long in that schedule as that you thought? And then I think if you just only look at schedule, you're missing the other two elements, right? I'm not really understanding. I see that we're hitting this, but what if we're not hitting the budget? Let's go back to that other point where you were talking before in the duration. I told you that I wasn't going to be able to work on it for 3 days or 4 days in a row, but my schedule freed up and I was able to do that. And actually, because of that, you planned that I was going to get done in 2 weeks. Well, my schedule totally freed up and I did get done in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I worked straight for 2 weeks, right? If I'm only looking at that schedule, I'm missing those pieces. I think that's why they call it the three-legged stool, because if you look at only one of them, those other two are going to break and you're going to fall down. So you got to keep your eye on the prize of all three elements.
As we celebrate this milestone, I want to take a moment to thank every guest who shared their experience and insights. and you, our listeners, for helping make this podcast a valuable resource for the AEC project management community. Your support has made the AEC Project Management Podcast a trusted place to learn, grow, and lead better projects. Here's to the next 100 episodes. Please remember you can find the show notes for this episode at aecpmpodcast.com. There you'll find a summary of key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all your project management endeavors.